Okay, so let's start the debates time. Yes. Sorry for that. So we have received two questions on our chat. The first question is to Jean-François Caron, which is not present anymore, but maybe Mission Bassambinier will try to answer it. So the question is, what guidance can you give to mining regions that are currently in an energy transition? And was it a good decision to protect the mining heritage? How do you assess after about 10 years of being on UNESCO list?
Je réponds quoi? Thank you, Beatrice, for organizing a second seminar. We have the title in the question. Thank you very much. No, about the it was energy and transition. So it's a full subject, and I mean whether in the treatment of mining. D'accord. Ils entendent pas? Oui. Yeah, I was thanking Beatrice for accepting to organize a second seminar devoted to the questions which were asked in by our guest. Yeah, it's a very full subject. It was energy transition, which is a full subject in itself. Dominique would talk about, the treatment of housing estate in terms of energy waste, and so. In fact, I will say that it's international and European questions, and please go and get the guidance and all the full debates on the EU. It's a European platform for mining regions in transition. It's I think it's connecting. It gathers at least 40 or 30, 20 countries connected to this idea of energy transition in full subjects. So the platform of coal regions in transition for energy. So it's, and I mean, for our network today, I think it would be good to be connected to this European platform, because it's also financed and steered by the EU. The EU and the DG Regio. So I think it could be good. And in fact, we have a full guidebooks concerning our platforms, local, regional guidance on this subject. And I think Dominique is working fully with the center of le CERD, ou pas le CERD, l'autre, aidez-moi. Your centers, local and regional centers connected to these subjects of energy transition. And the second one, I think it's a point of view. Of course, for us, it's a good decision to protect industrial heritage. Of course, but it's not protecting for protecting in an evolving and living cultural landscape. And I think that Philippe illustrated it in the very correct and a nice way. We all share. It means, of course, to protect buildings because they stand for a history, values, social social struggles, and so on. The material proofs of this of this history, social history and geography, and so on. But it's also the evolution, and the target of the management plan of the UNESCO is to combine authenticity, integrity, and evolutivity, which is maybe the square circle sometimes, but we have to invent solutions. The Ministry of Environment told me when I asked her, the lady in charge, saying, yeah, well, you want to put panels with solar panels on the roofs of mining estates. How can I do with the need of protection, the integrity of the roofs? And she said, Catherine, the Ministry of Environment, I don't have any answer for you. You have to invent with your partners. That's the Ministry of Environment. No. So in fact, of course, we showed you that with the mining vine pattern, vine framework, that is not only to protect for protecting, but to think over the future, the present and the future, for better functioning and building projects of quality. Because the great question is urban, environmental, or for inhabitants, a matter of quality and excellence. I think that's the key major pattern in it. So yes, it's worth protecting in this view, and that's what we defend in our inscription.
And I wanted to maybe ask the same question to Brent. Is there any question of protecting infrastructure or landscape in Kentucky? Or maybe you can come here. Well,
yeah, the question is new. It's relatively new. So the coal economy is still present, but has declined significantly. So I think a lot of what we'll confront in the coming years would be questions that I think have come up in Northern France, specifically in some of these other communities, which have seen it in decades before Appalachia. So it's a new question, and there haven't been definitive answers yet. Of course, there are historians and preservationists and heritage conservationists that are actively interested, but as far as protections or designations, there's yet to be any considered.
Maybe we can follow the.
Okay, so you spoke that the landscape and these problems are not really recognized by the state, and that here in Europe we really take care about this mining problems and post-mining, and that. So I wanted to know if there are any national programs to finance your projects, or it's more about searching for private financing. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know of any comparable efforts to promote reclamation as I've seen today. I think a lot of what we're experiencing is the kind of retreat or the abandonment of mining companies after they're able to reclaim their bond obligations. So, and a lot of this, the scholars have attributed to weak enforcement mechanisms. So there are regulations in place that have to do with restoring original contours or restoring original habitat. But the extent of the landscape that has been destroyed by mining is such that the enforcement to make those rehabilitation efforts happen has been lacking. So yes, it's in place, but in terms of enforcement, it hasn't really been upheld. And some of the efforts to promote reclamation are not yet incentivized enough, I'd say.
Someone else?
Yeah, so we have another question from Silvia Caputo, University of Kent. I don't know much about post-mining territories, but I was wondering if soil remediation is still a big issue, and if the landscaping and the economic opportunities for regeneration can be linked to this. So it's a question for all, but perhaps especially for those areas that include villages and other more or less intense human activities. So I don't know.
Maybe Shubhra, could you answer this question? In terms of soil remediation and the issue in landscape and economic opportunities? Charleroi.
In Charlotte, soil remediation is not a very big challenge because was solvable toxicants have sort of drained out, and also the new vegetation that is building on them is helping purify in a way the soil. One problem is that in some places there are some projects that are starting to build over these terrains because they see it as an opportunity to do more development, because it gives a view of nature. In Charleroi, there are very less green spaces. So even in these places, it's not the soil remediation that becomes very challenging, actually. But it is actually the construction on these terrains itself, which is harmful for the biodiversity that is already taking root. So it's a bit opposite. But there are certain sites to the south of the river where there are projects of remediation, but they have been going on for a long time, for I think, I don't know, 40 years, 30 years. Like I saw a project and it started to be, well, they were planting rows of trees and also water ponds and to start creating an ecology there so that the water gets in a way purified. But those projects take a long time in at least Charleroi, and if you have to do it at the scale that it exists, there are no resources to do that. And also you have to question if it's also should you put all that money into remedifying when actually you're already getting a new kind of nature growing in these, which is not really, like, it's not a harmful environment. You can't do agriculture on them, of course.
Yeah.
A couple issues that we see too, and again, the parallels are significant, I think. So these landscapes that have been reclaimed, the soil had been compacted beyond what could be restored as forests, as I mentioned. And I think the problems that this produces are multiple. So it creates almost a sealed surface in these sites where the runoff from stormwater has contributed to flooding in a lot of these small towns that are situated on the valley floors near the rivers. So there's great incentive to prevent flooding in order to properly remediate the soil. There's toxic runoff that pollutes waterways. And then in some cases, the compaction process has produced unstable landscapes that have produced landslides. So I think there's a lot of incentive to properly restore these sites. But again, the mechanisms aren't quite in place yet. But in terms of the kind of economic opportunity involved, there's been one pilot project from one of my colleagues at the University of Kentucky who started an organization called Green Forests Work, which takes these mine sites and hires local people to operate heavy machinery to basically retrench and dig up this soil in order to aerate it for more productive root generation, and then hires another team to plant forests on these sites. So there's, again, great opportunity, and then it's just a matter of finding the right regulatory frameworks to make it happen. So yeah, that would be.
Thank you.